Hey, hey. Well, welcome back. J.P.'s World of Wrestling. I'm your man, J.P. So, what am I talking about today? Well, when I did my video about wrestling video games, it had occurred to me that there was one that I left out, and that's this one. WCW nWo World Tour, made by THQ. Now, this game was pretty awesome. This was the first wrestling game that came out from THQ for Nintendo 64, but it was a WCW game. But at the time, I was pretty much only watching. Well, I wasn't only watching, but I was only interested in WCW because at this time, WWF had kind of gone with the Attitude Era, and they were kind of doing all this stuff. Uh, that was to me, it wasn't the type of wrestling that I liked. But WCW, they had the nWo happening. And I was really intrigued by that storyline because that guy, Hulk Hogan, had turned heel. He was a bad guy, and him, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash had formed this group called the New World Order, and they started wreaking havoc in WCW. But that's a later episode. But this game came out, and when it first came out, when me and Joe started playing it, we were like, oh man, this game is awesome. Just the graphics are not super, but the movements of the wrestlers was far more realistic than was far more realistic looking as far as the way the wrestlers moved around than we anticipated. But anyway, it's a really good game. It's got tournament mode, round robin tournament, which means that everybody wrestles everybody at least once, and whoever has the most wins. And then they had like nWo versus WCW, where you pick a certain number of WCW guys, you pick a certain number of nWo guys, and they have matches. Whoever has the most wins out of that wins. And then there was exhibition match, which include single or tag match, and then they had Battle Royal, which is really just a four-way match, or handicap match. You could also do that. But it was a good game. There was these unlockable boss characters. Like you could do a league match, and a league match is basically you go to a certain league and you wrestle all of their wrestlers, and at the end you fight like a boss guy, which was basically just obscure WCW guys like Wrath and Glacier, and I think Macho Man was another boss character. But they had all these like different like international leagues on the game. There was like a DOA league, there was an independent union league, and they had all these independent like international wrestlers that you could also pick. And but it's a good game. The only thing I don't like about the game is a lot of times the finishers were meaningless. You could do a finisher and it still wouldn't actually finish the guy. You know? Wouldn't actually finish anything. So anyway, WCW nWo World Tour. Good game. And I left this game out, I think, because it wasn't with my other games. So I had to kind of dig this out. I was going through my stuff looking for my Xbox 360, and all the components so I could get it hooked up. But I saw this game. I'm like, oh, there that is. I forgot. But WCW nWo World Tour. And the other thing I didn't like about the game is that a lot of times, like the finishing moves that they did give guys didn't really match what the guy did. Like Scott Hall's finishing move, instead of just a regular, like outsider edge or razor's edge that he did, it was kind of that, but then it like converted into like a pin. And a lot of the moves on here, the finishing moves were like power bomb pin moves in some form or another. But you had to really, really, really beat a guy down before you could get your finishing, or you could get your finishing move, but you had to really beat him down before your finishing move would actually mean anything. So, as I recall, the Giant and Kevin Nash were the only guys on the game where their finishing moves were actually somewhat devastating. A lot of times you can just knock a guy out with those moves. Anyway, with that being said, WCW nWo World Tour. Good game, great game. I love it. And if you're new here, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.